Trump sees no reason to impose sanctions on Russia, is counting on a peace agreement and is waiting for Volodymyr Zelenskyy in the Oval Office on Monday. We talk about how the meeting in Alaska went, our expectations and what we ultimately got. My name is Albina Pidhirnyak. Let's analyze together the events of the last few days. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is convinced that the Russian-Ukraine war can end before Christmas, but only if there is a tripartite meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump, Russian President Volodymyr Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He wrote about this on his social network X.
Make no mistake, this war is a war of aggression by Putin against Ukraine. However, I have always said Ukraine will not evict every Russian soldier, and Putin is not going to take Kyiv. The key to ending this war honorably and justly is to create an infrastructure of deterrence that Biden and Obama failed to do, which will prevent a third invasion. If, in fact, there is a trilateral meeting between President Trump, President Zelensky, and Putin, then I am cautiously optimistic that this war will end well before Christmas. If that meeting fails to materialize, I think President Trump may have to go all in to punish those who buy cheap Russian oil and gas, propping up Putin's war machine. Well done, Mr. President.
The Secretary of State of the United States, Marco Rubio, in my opinion, appeared at this meeting with due dignity. The communication between the Russian and American delegations took place in 3-on-3 format. Among others, Rubio was also present at the meeting. However, I want to show you the moment when Rubio entered this room where the conversation was taking place. Rubio was already about to take his seat in the negotiation room, and only Trump seems to have reminded him of Putin's presence here, pointing Mark to the dictator. Look at this moment. I'd like to point out that this so-called press conference between Trump and Putin lasted 12 minutes in total. None of them answered the journalist's question, although the format was exactly a press conference. And I'd like to recall the main messages from the Trump speech.
I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate. And I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here. And I think, you know, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time. And we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. That made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all. But we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax. But what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon.
Putin, as he himself said, met Trump with the words that he is glad to see his neighbor in good health and alive. And here, of course, every word of the bloody dictator sounds alarming. After all, we know very well how Putin treats his neighbors. At the press conference, the Russian dictator cynically repeated his narratives from the article of 2021 about one rules and one people.
And you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand this history, is precious. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions. We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict, and we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress.
I think you have all seen this footage of the American military laying a red carpet to the gangway of Putin's plane. You've all seen Trump applauding Putin as he walked out to meet him. The video of the applause has been removed from the White House website, but it is, of course, circulating online. It is important that after Putin walked alone, the red carpet lit out for him. He, with a sense of superiority and cynicism, didn't answer the journalist's question about when he would stop killing civilians. You can see Putin's reaction further in the video.
Mr. Putin, did you underestimate Ukraine? President Putin, will you stop killing civilians? President Putin, how can the U.S. trust your words?
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
A formal dinner was to follow the press conference, but it was cancelled. Trump left for Washington, and Putin, without even eating, flew from Alaska to Russia. During the flight, Trump spoke with Volodymyr Zelenskyy. It is noted that the conversation was quite long and mindful. Here is what the Ukrainian president wrote in his telegram following his conversation with President Trump.
I had a long, meaningful conversation with President Trump, first one-on-one, and then also with the participation of European leaders. In total, we talked for more than an hour and a half. The conversation with President Trump lasted about an hour. Ukraine once again confirms that it is ready to work as productively as possible for the sake of peace. President Trump informed me about his meeting with the Russian leader, about the main points of the conversation. It is important that America's power influences the development of the situation. We support President Trump's proposal for a trilateral meeting between Ukraine, America, Russia. Ukraine emphasizes that key issues can be discussed at the level of leaders, and the trilateral format is suitable for this. I am going to discuss all the details regarding the end of the killings, regarding the end of the war with President Trump in Washington on Monday. I am grateful for the invitation. It is important that Europeans are involved at all stages in order to reliably guarantee security together with America. We discussed positive signals from the American side regarding participation in ensuring the security of Ukraine. We continue to coordinate our positions with all partners. Thanks to everyone who helps.
Trump noted in his social network Truth Social that it is necessary to establish not a truce but peace. With this statement, Trump confirmed the demands of the Russian dictator, who also trying to drag out this war, saying that he wants peace. Trump added that the meeting with Putin was supposedly very productive and he is waiting for Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Monday in the Oval Office.
A great and very successful day in Alaska. The meeting with President Vladimir Putin of Russia went very well, as did a late-night call with President Zelensky of Ukraine and various European leaders, including the highly respected Secretary General of NATO. It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war, and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up. President Zelensky will be coming to D.C., the Oval Office, on Monday afternoon. If all works out, we will then schedule a meeting with President Putin. Potentially, millions of people's lives will be saved. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Dear viewers, thank you for watching this video. Give it a like and leave your comment. I'll be grateful for your activity and communication. Take care. See you soon.